we could hear earlier that James Cameron said that he was supposed to do the movie, and then you did something that made him say, okay, you're the man. So what did you think that you do specifically?
Well, one of the things was I looked at the originals. I went back to the very first script he wrote before he tried a few different versions of the script, but the first crack he took at it, his first instinct, and he even said it's too long, it's almost like 200 pages, but he said, I think this has the right feel of what I was going for. I said, I want to read your original script, because I was interested in working with that if it worked. And it did. It was just so bold and beautiful film. His version of the manga and the story he told, the cinematic story, I could just identify with so many of the characters. And it was just too long, really. It really, when you read it, because it's from a director's description, and his description is so well, you felt like you could picture the whole movie. And what happens sometimes is when you write a script and it needs some work on it, someone will go, another writer, and they'll just start rewriting it. And I didn't want to go rewrite it. I just wanted to edit it down to length and keep much of the essence of what he had. So he wasn't reading a new script, he was reading his script just tighter, you know, so that takes some work. But what I gave back to him was something that he couldn't figure out what 60 pages I cut out, because I kept the character stuff and took some of the action and things out that wasn't as important to him. I know what's important to him is story and character, that you're involved with the characters before this happens, and that's what draws you in. So I think that's what impressed him, was that I had studied his work enough to know what would be important to him as a storyteller, and me wanting to bring that version to life.
Thank you. Do we have a question somewhere? Nope.
It's always bad when there are no questions.
Bonsoir, je suis désolé, mon anglais n'est pas assez bon pour que je me permette de
I will
poser la
translate,
question.
no problem.
Parfait. Ma question sera double. Je voulais savoir comment vous avez choisi jusqu'où vous arrêtez dans le manga, quelle scène choisir et jusqu'où vous arrêtez, et quelles ont été les interventions de mangaka Yukito Kishiro en voyant le processus de production.
Okay, so it's actually two questions in one. The first question is, how did you know when to stop in the manga story for this movie? And the second one is, Yukito Kishiro, the mangaka, how did you interact with him or not? Maybe, I don't know.
Let me jump into the first part, because Jim really made that decision when Jim wrote the script initially. Jim looked at really what was the story of the first 3 mangas and said, that's the story I want to tell, except there's one thing missing, motorball, which I think is introduced in the 4th one. So Jim said, I want to take the motorball and make this cinematic. And Kishiro, we started out right from the beginning involving him. Jim flew to Tokyo to have a meeting with Kishiro before we ever signed the deal for the rights. When we got into pre-production on the movie, I went back, met with Kishiro, showed him the artwork, shared the script that Robert had rewritten. He came to the set and visited us. And Kishiro's a man of very few spoken words, but when he walked onto the set, and he's in Iron City for the first time, the smile on his face said everything 1,000 words could say. And then Rosa Salazar came pouncing and running up to him and enveloped him in a hug. And he sort of was taken a little bit aback, and she stepped back, and he said one word, Alita. And that was it.
Another question somewhere around here.
You are not going to do the second question? No? Okay.
This was he answered both.
Okay. You are doing the first 2 arcs of Gun, Battle Angel Alita. Does it mean you will do more movie if there is success? What is the condition to make Battle Angel Alita 2, 3, 4, 5?
That's up to you, the audience. You will tell us.
We'll make as many as you want.
That's right. I think, Kishiro created a world that we could tell many stories in. Robert and Jim have talked about other potential stories of where to go with this. We've left our sets standing in the back lot of Robert's studio.
That's right.
So the audiences will tell us.
Thank you.
Over there in the back, I don't know. Yep.
Hello, good evening. I have kind of an obvious question somehow, but so obviously it's an adaptation work, and you go from a script, an original script by Cameron. So in all of this, what was your approach to make all this universe with yours, in a way?
I mean, there's decisions you make day by day where you have to have your own vision of what it is. But I was really, I like sometimes, I make movies sometimes that are just completely my movies. And then I sometimes will work with like Kevin Williamson on The Faculty, or Quentin Tarantino on Dusk Till Dawn, or Frank Miller, making a purely Frank Miller movie with Sin City. This was my chance to make a missing Jim Cameron movie, one that I'd been waiting for many years. I'd always wanted to see this movie, and then when he told me he wasn't going to have time to make it, I thought, wow, I can help him bring it to the screen. And he had it so well, visualized already before I even started. It still takes a lot of work to get it to the screen, to get it to here. You have to cast the right people and there's a lot of stuff I still have to do, but at least I had a focus, which was I want to make a movie that when I sit back and watch it, I feel like I'm watching like a lost Jim Cameron movie. And because I've known him for so long, I've known him about 25 years, I was able to kind of predict some things that I thought he would like and he would help course correct, but there's so many ways you could go with a story. I really wanted to lean in the direction of him. Now, it'll never be 100% him. It's going to have a lot of me in there, but at least it starts with the work that Kishiro did and that Jim did. And so for me, this movie more than any, as I got effect shots back, it's the one that I felt more like an audience member than the filmmaker, because the effects would come in and we shot a lot practical, but some of that we didn't shoot at all. So I was so excited to see it come to life. It was exactly as I envisioned on the page when I read his very detailed script, but it takes a lot of work to get there. So believe me, there's plenty for me to do, for sure.
Plenty for Robert to do. Do you have a question about the 3D?
Yeah, you had a question?
Is it for me similar than Avatar? First time I saw it on cinema. Was he actually for the 3D?
Did Cameron help me with the 3D? Oh, well, these were camera systems that Jim designed. So we wanted to shoot them. We were really early adopters of 3D. Jim and I would go around trying to get distributors to change their theaters to 3D back in the early 2000s. And we knew we couldn't do a conversion on this. We had to shoot really for real 3D, and it really is a difference. It looks amazing, even on the set when you're filming it. So he definitely has a way of shooting 3D and builds his systems a certain way to deliver that kind of immersive picture.
So, and also, if you really look at the history of recent 3D, while we might have developed the camera systems, Robert actually filmed the movie with those camera systems before we shot a feature film. So Robert knew the sensibility, and in looking at what we do and how we approach 3D, we look at 3D as a window into a world, not a world coming out of a window. And we want to create a more engaging, immersive experience for audiences. And that's something that Robert, just in his filmmaking, he showed us that he embraced that even in doing, going back to Spice Kids. So it was a perfect synergy.
Bonsoir. Bravo pour les images, c'est très impressionnant. Je voulais juste savoir comment est-ce que vous avez réagi après le premier trailer et le petit bad buzz qu'on a pu voir sur Internet, notamment au niveau des yeux de Alita. Comment est-ce que la production a réagi et comment est-ce que vous avez, même James Cameron d'ailleurs, comment est-ce qu'il a réagi?
Okay, so first of all, congratulations, it looks amazing. And second, how did you react when there was, after the first trailer, when there was some bad buzz on the internet about how big the eyes were, and how did you react and how James reacted?
Well, first, let me say, when the first trailer for Avatar came out, all people were talking about were the blue Smurfs. So let's keep that in perspective.
I remember that. We originally weren't going to put a trailer out that early because we had just started, the post-production process. And originally this movie, it was scheduled to come out during the summer. So we were looking at the Christmas date, and Fox really thought we really should have a trailer up. So we did some special shots just for the trailer. Those weren't the final shots at all. And we were still working out. There's a lot of work to do to create her. And so we put it out, and there was people who thought that, oh, the eyes are too big, and they react very, I remember people reacting at first to Avatar the same way, like not understanding what it was until they get used to it. It's something very new. And I was curious to see what John and Jim would say about the feedback, so I watched very closely, and I didn't hear anything. So I thought, well, maybe, I wonder if they'll get a second thought and make us shrink the eyes. No, I didn't hear anything. So they must be used to this kind of reaction, knowing that they have a vision, they just keep going forward. So it was very curious. Then I got a call from Jim. He did want to work on the eyes more. He goes, yeah, there's something about them that's not quite right. We actually have to make them bigger. Bigger, really? And he said, yeah, I went through this on Avatar. So if you compare the two trailers, you'll see, and people have made notes saying, hey, look, they made the eyes smaller. No, we actually made them bigger. The eyes are actually the exact same size, but he said the irises have to get bigger. They actually have to be bigger to be more in proportion. So if you look at the comparison between the two trailer images, you'll see that her iris was actually smaller originally, and now it's much bigger. He said, you should increase the size by, I'd say 30%. I was like, really? And he said, or, you can get away with 15 to 20%, but I would go 30. And I said, wow, and that's the thing with Jim. Always just follow Jim. Look at his track record. He can see around a corner when no one else can. And whenever I've just followed him, we end up in the promised land. So we went, and sure enough, it does look more real that way, even though it's far from being a human eye. But that's the genius of Jim. Trust in Jim, he knows what he's talking about. But that's fun, funny fact that we actually made them bigger.
We have shirts made Trust in Jim.
Trust in Jim.
Any other questions?
We've got a few minutes.
Thank you for this opportunity to ask you questions. And as a filmmaker, you've got a very wide spectrum of movies that you've made. Planet Terror, Dawn of the Dead, Sin City, Spy Kids. As a storyteller, how difficult is it for you to come out of the universe of one movie before you make the other movie, to effectively show it to show your dream to the audiences? How difficult is it? What is your method?
How difficult is it to show the movie? What do you mean, like
just to be able to switch from universe?
I'll speak for what I know of Robert. You're thinking that Robert finishes one project before he starts thinking about another. He doesn't. In that head, under that hat of his, he's got story after story after story. And I know that because he's always telling me, and he's always showing me things that he's working on that are over the horizon. So Robert is truly an auteur filmmaker. So like Jim, he writes. And because of that, as a director, he doesn't have to wait for someone to present him with the script. He could take an idea in his head, he could write it himself, he could find a partner to write it with. Robert, while we were doing this, just shot a VR film.
Virtual reality film. Yeah.
With Michelle Rodriguez about action, 20 minutes, because it was in his head concurrently.
Yeah, so it is a lot of fun to have many projects. Sometimes, and Jim's the same way. Like when I showed him Desperado, when I just finished it, and we went to Lightstorm, showed him Desperado. While he was watching it, he let me read one of his scripts that he had been working on, that he had just finished. It was called Avatar, 10 years before he made the movie. So sometimes you have projects that have been going for many, like this one, almost 20 years. So when you're finally, is the right time to make it, you find the right people, you can't wait to get it out, but it's not like it's one after another, oh, now what do I do? You usually have a back catalog. As a writer of movies you can't wait to do, I've got about 10 movies that I would love to do still, and I'm trying to figure out when and how.
Bonjour. Je voulais vous demander, en fait, si après Alita ou Gun, vous avez pensé à adapter d'autres mangas, en fait. Parce qu'en règle générale, les lives adaptés des mangas, ce sont des catastrophes. Et là, de ce que j'ai vu, c'était franchement pas mal. Donc je me demandais si vous connaissiez d'autres mangas, si vous vouliez les adapter et si vous connaissiez la saga Gundam.
So, just wants to know is whether you would like to adapt other mangas into live-action movies, because we really have in France, we will have concern. We had some bad experiences. I'm not gonna name names, but we had some bad experiences with adaptations from manga in the past, and this looks beautiful. So if you want to adapt Gundam, for example.
You know, we're very lucky because the world Kishiro created was a world that was very ripe for cinematic translation. He did not write a story that was set in Asia. He wrote a story where you went to the Kansas bar. He's created a story that's a melting pot of societies coming together in one place. He wrote a protagonist at the center of his story who could be any girl, any person. So this translates very, very well, and that's why we have his support as we're going forward. And you know, I think the manga world is ripe with other ideas also to have a lot of potential, but they have to be the right story, and you have to honor what the author did in the manga when you're doing the cinema.
We're going to have the last question, so make it count.
One right down here.
She's already running towards someone. Ok.
Non, petite question rapide et je vais laisser placer le micro à mon collègue. J'ai oublié de compléter ma question tout à l'heure. Comme vous êtes là, John Landau, je voulais juste savoir quand est-ce qu'on pouvait espérer voir les premières images d'Avatar 2. Merci.
Just a quick question. When can we see the first pictures of Avatar 2?
This century. But, you know, Robert and I want to thank you all for coming here today.
Thank you for being such a great audience.
We're going to be back here in Paris in January when we're premiering the whole movie, so we look forward to returning and sharing the whole movie with you. But for now, merci beaucoup. Thank you.